Hello and welcome to this episode of LinkSpring Live. I'm Bruce Stimson, Vice President and CIO of LinkSpring, and I'm here today with Anno Scholten, who is President of Connexx Energy. Welcome, Anno.
Bruce, how are you?
Just great, doing great. Want to talk to you today about the energy business. Pretty good place to be these days. It's kind of an interesting
Absolutely.
Bunch of things that's going on. Let's talk specifically about demand response, because I know there's a lot of questions about that out in the market, and you're probably hearing it from some people know a lot, some don't know anything. So just kind of give us a little overview.
Sure. So just at the highest level, demand response is a very simple concept. It's basically a utility, or an ISO as they're called, independent system operators, will actually pay an end customer not to use energy at the peak time.
There you go.
So it's direct, it's demand responding to a peak.
So there's benefits obviously to the building owner then?
Yeah, so the significant benefits to the building owner is he gets paid to do this. So people typically confuse demand response with energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is using less energy all the time and making your equipment more efficient, and therefore the cost is less because you're using less energy.
Sure.
Demand response is basically just not using energy
and get a check.
And get a check. Yes, get a check.
So benefits to not only the building owner but to, say, systems integrators and other people in the channel.
Yeah. So that really talks to probably where the state of the play is today.
Right.
Demand response has been around for a long time. It's been mainly focused on the industrial market, where they have very heavy loads, large loads, and are very simple to control. In fact,
could do it manually.
You could do it manually. In fact, I will tell you that 95% of demand response today is still done manually.
Really?
It's mainly industrial loads. But to that point, that's what's really changing. And now what's happening is the industrial market's pretty much tapped out. Most of the market's
low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
Commercial market is the hot one today. But with the commercial market, it's very hard to turn a building off manually.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in the building that you have to do.
You don't want to accidentally turn off the freezer.
Exactly. And you could actually end up annoying tenants if you don't do it correctly, if you've got that sort of building. And so the big state today is, how do we do that automatically?
And probably a lot of people out there are interested in it, but they don't know how to get started.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace. There are a lot of players. Building owners are called on each day, in fact, and this actually talks to some of our channels. A lot of times our system integrators probably first hear about automatic demand response with their customer because their facility manager will tell them that their CFO has signed up to the program, and
I signed up for it.
They've signed up to it, and I have to be the guy running around turning stuff off.
Great.
Yes.
So talk to me about, I hear about this OpenADR 2.0 is out now. So obviously OpenADR 2.1 has been out. What's the differences?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So just as we just talked about, so the big area is now automatic demand response. As you couldn't probably quite know, in the days of proprietary protocols, before we had BACnet and before we had LON, there was a lot of proprietary BACnet. Automatic demand response in the early days was also proprietary. So in the California marketplace, though, which is California being what it is, quite progressive in the energy market space, they've actually introduced an open protocol of automatic demand response. Its name is OpenADR.
Okay.
The previous version was actually OpenADR 1.0. It's been around probably 3, 4, 5 years, maybe a bit longer. Quite successfully deployed in the California market. Its biggest challenge was there was no certification body, so it was an open standard, but nobody certified it. What the big thing that happened with 2.0 was there's now a certification body called the OpenADR Alliance, who actually now will certify OpenADR products. But OpenADR 2.0 has also introduced a lot more sophistication in the signals and the messages that are in the demand response message.
A little more sophisticated now.
A lot more sophisticated.
And so I noticed you mentioned that they're a certification body, and we were talking before about how Connexx has a certified driver now.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that a little bit.
So, the biggest challenge that most building owners find is, I have an OpenADR signal coming from my utility or my ISO. How do I actually physically interface that into the building, the building systems? And as we all know that...
So they don't make a phone call to you.
They don't make a phone call. There is an electronic signal that comes into the building, and the building owner's challenge is, well, I have a Johnson system or a Siemens system or
right.
Train or a whole collection of systems. I might have standalone systems, and so the challenge is how do I integrate those systems into that signal.
Right.
And so what we've done as Connexx Energy is we've actually built a OpenADR client. It's actually called a VEN, a virtual end node in the parlance of OpenADR.
Right.
And this virtual end node is a driver that will sit on a Niagara platform.
Right.
And of course, we all know how well Niagara interfaces into all these building systems.
Sure.
So basically, the Niagara platform plus our driver will now bridge between the building automation system and the OpenADR signal coming from the ISO.
Sounds exciting.
Very much.
Okay, so talk to me about dashboards, how that all fits in together with
this. So as you can imagine, you know, operating your building and especially if you're operating a building from an energy perspective, you know, you've got a lot of energy initiatives today that you can become part of.
Right.
Demand response, as we just talked, is one of those. Right. And so as an example, demand response, as I get this signal from the ISO, a lot of these aggregators or the people who provide the signals, they provide you with a dashboard to see how your building is working in the demand response world.
Sure.
Energy efficiency is another candidate. Energy analytics, another guy. You know, if you put an energy analytics application onto your system today, you get dashboards for that.
Right. All these different various
sub-metering does dashboards. Sure. You've got energy kiosks now in the building where you can see how many cars and trees you're saving.
Exactly.
You've got LEED dashboards, you've got Energy Star dashboards, you know, and so as you can imagine,
it's a crowded market.
It's a crowded
and very confusing.
Very crowded. In fact, my interesting metric now as I walk into any facility manager's or energy manager's office is I've noticed that their screens or monitors are becoming bigger and bigger and more of them so they can accommodate all these plethora of dashboards that they've got. Which is becoming a challenge, of course. So, you know, there's now the energy manager operating his building has got this multitude of dashboards, typically different suppliers, different providers.
Systems that don't talk to one another.
Systems that don't talk to each other, different technologies. Some of them work on different browsers. Some of them have mobile apps and some of them don't. And so now their big issue is, how do I actually start integrating and using these dashboards in a more cohesive, integrated fashion?
Sure. And so how does Connexx help with that?
So that's an area that we've helped focusing building owners and end users with as well. Not only is this multiple dashboards an issue, but as you can imagine, the biggest challenge of the dashboard is how do I go get the data from these particular buildings, right? Because the dashboard isn't any good unless you can physically supply it with the data in the first place.
I don't see some secretary sitting in the back typing in the PowerPoint presentations for you.
Although a couple of years ago that wasn't unusual, but that has changed quickly. And so the challenge that the facility manager has is how do I connect these dashboards to my buildings?
Right.
And part of the issue is, you know, many of these companies who are providing the dashboards have their own proprietary gateways into the building system.
Right.
So if I now have 10 dashboards, you know, if I have an Energy Star and a LEED and a demand response and an efficiency and an analytics and etc., I now have 10 gateways that I have to deploy, which is 10 discussions with the IT manager.
Right. They love that.
They love that one. 10 potential security holes that I've now created. And then also these dashboards, they have their own databases. So now this data leaves this building through the proprietary gateway into someone's database, and they're not finally onto the dashboard. I've now got 10 databases out in the cloud. And so where Connexx really focuses is helping that building owner provide that data collection, gateway security aspects all in one cloud solution for him. We put in a solution that will do one connection to the building, do one security solution for that particular building, put in a database that sits in the cloud that they own, they manage, and is theirs. So if they want to move on to a different company,
they own the data.
They own the data.
Which is really, it used to be hardware that was the thing you wanted to own. Well, now we realize it's the data.
Absolutely right. Yes, correct.
Well, it sounds really interesting, Anno. So if anybody listening is interested in finding out more, how can they get in touch with you, or how can they connect and figure it out?
Good question. Immediately, of course, our website, www.connexxenergy.com, spelled CONNEXX, energy.com.
All right.
I will also be at the Haystack Connect event in Chattanooga at the end of April.
Should be interesting.
Should be very interesting. I'll be on the energy panel at that, so feel free to come and see me there. I'll also be at the IBCon, which is part of the Realcomm conference in June in Orlando. If you're going to be there, I'll be moderating 2 energy panels on that session, and I'll be around. And we'll also have a booth at IBCon.
Excellent. Well, Anno, thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you for listening to this episode of Link Spring Live.